Saddle up your horses.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast. We have an exciting show for you guys here tonight. We are continuing our theme. We are continuing our theme of diving into the defensive side of the ball. We talked about the offense. And, you know, if we have some time, maybe we'll slide maybe a little bit in terms of maybe a prospect or so that maybe we forgot in the conversation about defensive prospects, or maybe there are an offensive prospect we kind of forgot. So we are certainly excited to have you in the house here tonight. Again, we want to remind people that make sure you subscribe to the MHRT network over there on YouTube. And if you are fans of the Manely Broncos podcast or any podcast on this network, make sure you tell your friends and have your friends tell their friends about this podcast and about this network, because there are a ton of great shows and great content that is not just Broncos related, but there are certainly other shows that are on the network that could meet your fancies. So thank you guys so much for hopping in and enjoying the show. It's going to be very, very exciting. And so we're certainly looking forward to getting the chance to talk about the NFL draft. Brandon, we're
getting so close, man. Just, I need it in my life.
Yeah.
Now. I'm so tired of no football.
we were talking about on 5280, and it's like we've officially entered the NFL free agency dead period. Truly. In terms of moves and everything that is going on, and then not only that, but you know, you basically have also entered the point where rumors are circulating, right? Like rumors are circulating either from the smokescreen season or, you know, situations where, you know, you are, you know, trying to create stuff, or just the fact that it's just simple draft news, right? Like it's just simple draft news. So you're kind of scrambling to put on your, you know, your Sherlock Holmes hat on, or the guy from Always Sunny in Philadelphia trying to decipher, you know, exactly what is going on with these draft rumors.
Tinfoil hats, man. Tinfoil hats.
Tinfoil hats.
Sir.
You got a little bit of echo going on.
Yeah, I think I went to move my mic and I hit something and I don't know what I hit, and it like muted me. So I got to figure that out.
Yeah, maybe it's like a setting or something with it being the Yeti mic or something. But yeah, first things first, and by the way, anybody that is in the chat or is watching us on stream, again, reminder that if you guys are watching on X or Twitter, your comments will be shown on the stream. So not just simply through YouTube or even Facebook, you know, whether that be through the Manely Broncos Facebook page or the MHRT Network Facebook page. Your comments will be shown, you know, on the air. So I'm certainly looking forward to getting the chance to get the chance to interact with you. And by the way,
Twitter finally figured it
out. Before we get the chance to talk about some of these defensive prospects, Brandon, something exciting to talk about. The NFL, I should say, Tom Pelissero teased today about a third helmet design. And it's exciting. Like, it is really exciting because it seems like any teams that either applied for the 2024 redesign or jersey updates for their uniforms this year will get a 2024 pass for helmets this year. So that means that the Denver Broncos will not just have two helmets, but a third helmet design that'll be in play for them this year in 2024.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'm intrigued. Also, hold on real quick, as long as we're like somewhat on the topic. You saw the video of the Bronco mascot?
Yeah, Miles.
With Miles basically doing the like leak detection kind of.
Yeah.
What an interesting decision by the Broncos. If anyone hasn't seen the video, basically, it goes into like it starts out with a shot of Miles basically getting the announcement that they're getting new uniforms, and basically to like not leak anything or avoid leaks, and then like goes around and like he actually like fixes like faucets so that this doesn't leak, and like does a bunch of like cheeky stuff. But then at the end, he's going into the locker room, and he's wearing a robe, and he goes to open the locker, and the robe like slips a little bit, and then they blur everything out, and I'm like, holy shit. It was interesting.
Yeah, it's I will say it's not
expecting that.
I will say it's not quite on the level of like the Carolina Panthers or even the Los Angeles Chargers, but it was definitely one of their better social media teases. Like it was certainly one of their better social media teases that they've done in quite a bit. And actually, I will say they've definitely done better in terms of their social media presence and in terms of it getting better. What's up, Michael? Thanks for hopping in. Missed you kind of commenting here and there. I think we saw it last week, but missed you kind of commenting on the show.
I tried to get Matty to join I'm not going to be afraid to admit it. I was kind of peer pressuring him a little bit. Like I was using your comment that he can't talk to you until he comes back against him in our group chat. And I was like, so this means you're going to be on tomorrow, right? And he tried, but he is not feeling fantastic, and also is still super busy with life.
Those dang migraines. Matty, we're praying for you. We hope you get to feeling better. And before we dive a little bit more into the whole uniforms, a reminder that we have a huge show lined up for you guys next week. And we will make sure that we get a chance to tease the guest for you here at the end of the show. So make sure you tune into the rest of the show to get a chance to find out who exactly that guest will be.
Sneak peek for next week.
Here's where Cameron goes berserk.
It's going to be that fun.
I tell you, they can't mess this up now, right? Like I mean, when you look at it just from the just overall with how they've done this, the teasing.
Yeah, your mic's doing something weird. I don't know what it is, but I can't hear you well.
Oh, I think I'm sounding okay.
No, now it's much better.
Yeah,
it was like coming from the side. Go ahead. We didn't hear you.
No, I just think that they can't mess this up. They can't mess this up. I think
they have a golden opportunity here, and if they don't take advantage of it to give us the D, then they effed up. That's all I'm going to say. Like they were given a gift, because if that was not in their original plans, fans are going to go berserk, and they were given a new gift here, the opportunity to have a third helmet. And if one of these helmet designs does not include the old school logo, someone should get fired.
No, and
but they knew. Teams knew about this.
Yeah.
It's just that no one else did.
And I will say, at least it's been confirmed with Mario, friend of the show, that it seems like the Broncos will be getting their throwback uniforms. They will be getting their throwback uniforms.
I didn't see that.
That's what Mario was mentioning, is that they probably will be getting the throwbacks. So, I think that it's certainly going to be bearing a watch as far as how it unfolds. Because now that the fact that you kind of entered a third helmet into the mix, it almost like you're almost begging now, like almost groveling, for the Broncos to, okay, let's do this. Like, let's bring the throwback in here. Let's bring that, almost like skyline blue, that famous blue that they had in the 90s. Let's bring it back. Let's bring back those throwback uniforms. And we have those snow-capped helmets, right? So keep those snow-capped helmets. The you know, and obviously not to mention the, you know, the, you know, the helmet that is going to possibly be redesigned, should I say, right? The redesigned helmet. So it's good.
Redesigned, but not redesigned if everything is the same. Like I don't get that, but whatever.
Yeah. But I think I'm definitely excited, or I should say a little bit more cautious in this you know, in this space, just because of the simple fact that, well, now I feel like maybe I'm getting my hopes up now, so I can't be disappointed.
Yeah, don't get your hopes up too much, man.
Yeah,
We still need to see what happened. I'm still like just the comments about including more geographical info, like geographical design, and just that being obviously mountains. I'm still like, it's really easy for them to mess that up. So I'm low-key scared.
yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. Let's get a chance to dive right into this. Let's get defensive. Let's get defensive. Yes, D-Rock. I agree. They have got to stick the landing. They got to stick the plane on this, and at least with these unis. They can't necessarily go the Texans route. I will say for me, like the Texans, like I thought it was somewhat underwhelming to a degree. Like it looked like it was just simply like a number change and maybe to a degree like of lettering changes on the front of the uniforms and like for the back. But it's just it was just kind of like meh to me, you know? And I don't know how you felt about that, Brandon, but it was like I just felt like the red popped more, you know, with the uniform.
Yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of the Texans redesigned uniforms, but I honestly don't remember the last time I've seen a new uniform that I actually enjoyed, other than the throwback Oilers Titans, although like that was just impossible to miss on. But it's I don't know. We'll see what happens. It started with like when the Rams kind of went to that bone white or something, or like off white, bone on bone, whatever it was. Like that's when the uniform heyday started, and I started to basically hate like every new design, and then it just got worse from there. Like the Atlanta ones.
Yeah.
No, I haven't liked. What was the last like new uniform you saw that you liked?
Well, I was gonna say to the Rams' credit, it took me a bit for me to actually like enjoy the Rams uniform. So like
they grew on me. I will say they grew on me a little bit. So maybe that's just like a thing where you just don't like anything initially, and then it takes a little bit, and then it gets better. But I have not seen a redesign yet that I was like, this is amazing right out of the gate.
Well, like think of the Cardinals, right? Like the Cardinals, like for me, it's like the Cardinals felt so bland, you know, like of a uniform.
I literally don't even remember what they looked like. The new ones, like that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
Like I gotta go back and look this up.
Which, by the way, since Brandon is in the house, I still think the best possible tease, Brandon, for them to possibly do these new jerseys would have been.
Oh yeah, Cardinals are disgusting. Sorry.
Would have been, don't tease that they're possibly even doing, you know, jerseys and everything, and have it be on NFL Draft Night where Roger Goodell somehow has gotten, you know, told that like, okay, we're gonna hide the jerseys. This is where I'll hide it.
Oh yeah, don't show it until like the first pick announced in the draft and it comes out holding it. Exactly, that's exactly what they should have done. Like I don't understand why you don't do that. You're literally like, you have the perfect opportunity, and instead you're going to do it like 3 days before the draft. Come on, come on, son, come on.
The unfortunate thing about that is
Texans, Falcons. Dude, the Falcons were so bad. Anyway.
You just better pray. It doesn't bum. Whoa.
We have some breaking news here.
We have some breaking news. Did Brandon's bullying of Mr. Matty Mulls work? Look who's in the house.
Staff, clearly. I should add professional bullier to my resume.
Yeah, but you're the kindest bully.
Professional peer pressure. That's fair.
Hey guys,
Hey,
I didn't think I was going to
W's
be
a
able to make
W.
it. Didn't be able to. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it. Typically, I drink bourbon and stuff on here, but I'm not doing any of those shots because I had to give myself an actual shot earlier in the thigh with a migraine. But I wanted to make this episode. I didn't think it was going to happen about an hour ago, and what an incredible turn of events. So, I'm glad
We love you. Thank you.
I love
We
you
always
too,
love
Lucas.
you. Know what? And our viewers love you, Matty. Our viewers are actually going up now that you've entered the the stream. We missed you, buddy. So if you get in a chance, it's probably fitting now, Brandon. Like maybe we talk about some offensive prospects so that Matty can get a little bit caught up. What we thought we'd do, and we might as well just kind of roll into it now. We'll talk about some defensive prospects. And how we orchestrated this. Is we just kind of originally kind of went round by round, for this and maybe go, a little bit longer, if you will. But I think that probably the best way to also do it is maybe lump it positionally and lump some positions together. So like if you're talking cornerback, you may as well roll the safety room together as far as secondary to a degree, or even like the defensive line, you lump the interior of the defensive line to also edge rushers as well, or even defensive end. So I figure maybe we've done that at times, right? We've done that at times, and when we've done like the roster breakdowns and stuff like that for the team. So I feel like it's apropos and appropriate to do it like that.
Yeah, no, I think this will be. I think there's going to be some overlap, to be honest, on a couple names. Like the second name that I wrote down is someone we've actually talked about like very briefly in the past, and I'm pretty sure you probably also wrote down this player, but we'll find out.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you, since you're the one who did the first tease, why don't you, once you get a chance to?
Oh, all right. I just like choked on myself for a second. So I'm not going to start with this guy, but one, if we're still going round by round, one guy that I've just become more of a fan of the longer this goes on, and more of a guy, like he's not a sleeper. We've talked about him a ton of times. He's just someone that I'm becoming more comfortable with the idea of just straight up taking at 12. And that's Jared Verse. Jared Verse is the type of edge rusher that you can take, build your entire defense around, and like go into the next decade of your team having that positional cornerstone of an elite pass rusher that everyone fears, and you can build the team in so many directions off of, akin to, and I'm not calling him Von Miller, but when we got Von Miller, that's what Von Miller was. Von Miller was the guy that you basically comes in right away. He's an elite edge rusher. You have that guy on the defense at all times that you know he's going to make a play. At literally any snap of the game, he could make a game-changing play. You build around him, and what we did was like we acquired DeMarcus Ware, and then we tried to draft like younger pass rushers, and like he's just the guy that you can have, that you can count on, that you basically put in the lineup. You set him in there, he's a starter, and then you forget about it for the next 8 to 10 years because he's just going to be your guy. And I think Jared Verse is good enough to be that kind of player. There's been talk, and I've talked about Latu before, Latu. The only biggest issue just with him is the medicals, and I know we did meet with him fairly recently.
And Verse.
I'm not opposed to Latu. He's really good. And even without the injury history, which like I know nothing about this. Like if he's past injury concerns or medicals with the team doctors, that I'm fine with that. But I've continued to see like trade down and take him ideas floating around out there. And if you give me the choice between them, even though the medicals maybe he passed, if I choose between Jared Verse at 12 and maybe trading down and getting Latu, I'd rather take Jared Verse. I think he's a better player, and he doesn't have the injury concern that, again, even if he passed medicals, like there's still an injury concern there with Latu. So Jared Verse to me is like, I would be 100% happy with us taking him at 12. And I know I've mentioned this before, like this is not a sleeper, but just the more I think about it, the more I've seen him play and just kind of gone back and watched him a little bit, the more okay I am. If that's the pick, I'm good. Like I like it. I love it. Let's go.
Well, and I think that the edge rusher room is one that I've been kind of doing a little bit of a 180 on. Well, for one, like positional value. I mean, like I think that like if you look at from his just the overall positional value, like edge rusher, tackle and quarterback, right? Like those are some of the three staples. Like those are some of the three staples.
What was the famous wasn't it a John Elway quote of like, you need to have left tackle, cornerback, one, basically, an edge rusher are like the top three. What's up, Clayton? I'm pretty sure that was something like John Elway had said. Yeah. Like pretty much like right when he came into being a GM.
Well,
and he's not wrong.
So I think one of the reasons why I am, because I think Verse, for me, I think the thing that gives you the edge maybe for Verse, and I'll go to you, Matty. I'll get you some time to kind of resituate and gather yourself on your player. But I think that for Latu, for me, the thing that gives you maybe an edge for like a guy like Jared Verse is his physicality, and that's not necessarily an area that Latu has yet. But I feel like with his size at like 260, almost 270, I think he came into the his pro day at like 271, and he still showed an athletic profile. And I think that that's at least a coachable aspect where you can at least have him be not just coachable, but also in the gym. You can have him working out and knowing the fact that, and that goes for Verse too. But I mean, like, I think that having, Latu in the building, I think is going to be fun. I think one of the arguments for it is, well, he's maybe too much like some of the other guys in the room, like maybe like the Nick Manitos, the Jonathan Coopers, the Baron Brownings. I will say though, to a degree, if you are able to still successfully get to the quarterback, that is one of the more successful things that you can have coming into this league above all else. And I think that, and I truly think that, I really do wonder how high a guy like Latu was on the board. Because like the guy that I keep coming back to, and this is actually crazy to think about as far as the comparison, is a former UCLA player who transferred to the University of Miami, who happened to wear number 15 with the University of UCLA, Jalen Phillips. And actually, if you look at it and you break them down, they are got a fairly same story. Latu was told by UCLA to retire from football. Anybody remember Jalen Phillips' story? He was told
to retire.
He was told to retire from football. Yeah. And instead he transfers over to Miami and, makes himself, a first round draft pick. And I think that the story is pretty much the same, except for the transfer, and of course the injury history. I think the thing that gives me at least I maybe it's just this whole trade back scenario for me, because I think that like, it's just the idea that, well, you still might be able to get the quarterback in that second round. And the fact that you're able to pull out the punches and, get a guy like Latu and we'll talk about some other players, but like just the idea that you can get a Latu and someone else within there. I feel like your options are far more at your disposal.
So you're voting for the trade down?
To trade down and still take a defensive player.
I mean, I like Latu a lot. I just think if you're giving me a choice between those two, I just think Jared Verse is the better player. Here's the thing with Jared Verse that, and actually it looks like Mike is kind of slightly chiming in on this. Is he incredible against the run? No, he's not bad, but the thing with Jared Verse, like he has abilities that you cannot coach or teach a player, but you can coach a guy to be better against the run. You can coach a player to diagnose run plays better, and shoot gaps better and like stop the run, but you're not going to be able to teach like it's kind of like, again, Von Miller in that first step. You couldn't teach that. The things that Jared Verse does physically, you can't teach it. And he's just elite. He's so good that I'm 100% okay with us taking him at 12. I would also be okay with Law too, but the more I think about it, the more like that's kind of who I want there. I mean, I know we've talked about tackles, and I'm not saying I wouldn't love if like Olu falls to 12. Sure, grab him. But we need, and we've been missing that dominant edge player for quite a while. And I know we continue to talk about like the lack of elite quarterback play in Denver, which is beating a dead horse, no pun intended. But edge has been almost right up there with how long it's been since we've had that like prime Von Miller. Yeah. So I don't know. I love it. And we should have someone should have played the Jordan meme, because all I do is hype up Florida State players. But yeah, that's not a sleeper by any means. Like there's some other guys we could talk about in the first round, but I just wanted to share that the more I think about it, the more I'm okay with it.
Yeah. All right, Matty.
All right. So if we stay at 12, like it feels like most of it would be a reach, because a lot of those defensive players, like this is a quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle draft, right? Very heavy on those positions. Dallas Turner's another edge that you could have talked about potentially.
Dallas Turner's good too
at 12, right? Like those three guys pretty closely graded. Instead of talking edge, maybe I kind of want to direct the conversation to the interior and guys that may end up justifying that 12 pick. So there are two guys, Jerzon Newton and Byron Murphy, that could justify that pick at 12. Honestly, if you want to go defense, the move is to trade back, get additional assets, and then move forward.
Regardless of who the position maybe you're being targeting.
Yeah, there's just so much value in the back half of the first round for defensive talent, or especially in that that 15 to 25 range. It's going to be littered with defensive players. I just see corner, obviously, Cooper DeJean's gotten a lot of buzz lately. Incredible athlete and all of that, top 10 profile if you look at the athletics and the pedigree and the defense, right? Iowa won a ton of games playing good defense, getting no offensive support. Hey, the Broncos know a thing or two about that of late. So like I get it, but Chris Jones just got paid, and he is the linchpin for that Chiefs defense.
Derek Brown.
Without him, the rest of that defense doesn't go. Derek Brown just got his bag. Aaron Donald just retired. And Johnny Newton, Jerzon Newton, however you pronounce it, or whichever way you want to go, some have said he profiles like an Aaron Donald type, very disruptive on the inside. You can move him along the defensive line. Very quick first step. Very explosive, dominates against the run and the pass, even though he's a little undersized compared to, say, a Murphy. There's a lot to like with that kid, and the personals and everything. I've heard glowing things about his character. Could have transferred out of Illinois and chased a different path and decided to stay there, and just a highly disruptive player. On a defense that really didn't take a lot of attention away from him. So you could do worse at 12 than getting a dominant defensive tackle. I mean, people don't really, that's not a position that typically pays off right away. Now the Eagles got a little lucky there, but that could be the type of player that completely makes a defense tick. We see how limited Surtain is in the back end because the pass rush doesn't get home. The front seven's not always effective. And then you're kind of left on an island. Now, granted, Parker shouldn't be able to bully you on the biggest play of the season. But still, add a disruptor into the middle that eats up offensive linemen and opens things up for a Benito or a Cooper or a Browning or Drew Sanders, I guess, since he's playing outside. I don't know.
Even Zach Allen more.
Heck yeah. That guy could be a force multiplier for your defense. And even though he may only get 2 sacks on the season, he got so much attention that he freed other guys up, right? It's like that really good offensive player, like say Jokic isn't, we'll stick to Denver Nuggets basketball here. Say Jokic isn't making a bunch of shots. He still has such gravity, and he's able to facilitate for others that, this could be an MPJ night or a Murray night or whatever. Like, you just, even if you're not stuffing the stat sheet yourself, you do so much for everyone else. You rise that team, the production of the players around you. That's what you got to have out of all of your first round picks. You got to have a guy that you take in the first round that makes those around him better. So you can do worse than getting a defensive tackle here.
I am totally in agreement with you there. I have some names later on down the line that actually kind of fit that bill. But if you want to take a guy in the first round that's like more elite in every conceivable measure than some of the guys I'm going to talk about, I am mad at it by any means. But because I agree, like my biggest issue with this team right now, outside of obviously quarterback, is just lack of consistent pass rush. I don't care where you get it from. You get it from the edge, you get it from the inside. Pick one. But we need it.
And I think that this kind of goes back to the trade down philosophy in the sense of, because I think, and I'll mention someone else, but Johnny Newton, the guy that you mentioned, Matty from Illinois. If we do talk about connections, who was an analyst on Illinois, that is now the secondary coach,
Lionheart himself.
Jim Leonard was an analyst over there with Illinois. So I mean, if there's maybe two guys that possibly you have connections with, it would possibly be Cooper DeJean and Newton. And the reason why I say DeJean is because, well, he's got connections to Riley Moss. So we know that Iowa and Wisconsin have just been dogfights in the past when Leonard had been with Wisconsin, and of course, in possible battles with Illinois. So I think it's definitely something that I think it's going to be bearing watching. But as far as some more trade down type of players and scenarios, and for players even going more into the trenches, and then possibly even for corner, you really have to mention both Robinsons in these trade down scenarios. Chop Robinson and Darius Robinson, I feel like, are two players that are prime trade down candidates to acquire possibly as a late first. Chop is a very, very athletic pass rusher. He may actually end up being maybe one of the more athletic pass rushers of that entire group. Maybe even lumped into Latu. It's like he is. I don't know what Penn State is feeding those players, the Nittany Lions. I don't know what they're feeding them, but the athletic profile that the Nittany Lions have is just absurd.
If anyone else is a relative athletic score nerd, Chop Robinson scored a 9.72 out of 10. And the only reason it was lower is because his height and weight were both. But literally everything else was just disgusting.
Yeah. And the other one, of course, is Darius Robinson. And I think that if there's one thing maybe that could tilt the hand a little bit for a guy like Darius Robinson is the versatility. Here's a guy that can play on the interior and on the exterior. We think back to maybe how good Draymond Jones is, or how much we loved a guy like a Draymond Jones, or frankly, if we want to maybe dip our toes back into the great 2015 defenses, Malik Jackson. What made Malik Jackson so disruptive was his ability to play within the inside and on the outside. And Darius Robinson, I think, will give them a versatile weapon to where you can play him, maybe at D tackle or possibly even at D end. And one of the famous comparisons I thought that is awesome for a guy like Sean Payton, if you want to connect the dots, was someone compared him to Cam Jordan. Was Cam Jordan. And I think that if you're kind of looking through maybe the athletic type and athletic profile that maybe a guy like Payton would want to be interested in a possible trade down, Darius Robinson, possibly would be a player that I would be very intrigued with, because here's a guy that, he was the Senior Bowl MVP, right? He was voted as the best player from the Senior Bowl. He was maybe the one player, maybe of all the players that really improved their draft stock just by simply, putting in the work and winning every single rep, every single day. And Robinson was that guy. Like, Robinson was absolutely that guy.
Yeah, I mean, again, give me proven pass rush productivity. I'm completely okay with trading down and taking it. Like, I just love Jared Verse enough that I'm okay with taking him and not getting that extra capital. But there's a guy I'm going to talk about here soon that if we can somehow find a way to get a second round pick, sign me up. You can give me a second round pick and still take one of these guys. Like, I think Chop Robinson's going to go in the first. Darius Robinson was already going to go in the first. Chop Robinson kind of like is that guy who kind of improved his stock enough that he was probably originally like a day 2 guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the first. Like, either of the Robinsons I'm okay with. Even if it's not like a super elite depth edge class or even really defensive tackle class or defensive line in general, at least compared to like wide receiver and offensive line, the guys that are at the top are, one, at the top for a reason, and two, just incredible players. So there's not like the bottomless cupboard kind of mentality there at those positions this year than there are like where it feels like you can get a wide receiver in the 6th round that's probably going to start for you, or like an offensive tackle in like the 5th round, which is like almost unheard of. But the guys that are at the top on the edge and in the interior are really, really, really good.
And we should preface this by saying probably in the first round, you're probably talking a little bit more of the front 7 variety in terms of edge rushers and defense alignment that are probably the one that are going to meet your fancy. Because as far as some of these other positions, because like I may be biased, guys. Like I may be biased on the Big Ten, but like if I'm going to be taking a corner, I think the DeJean idea really is a fascinating one because here's a guy. Now here's a guy. But I think that with DeJean, his versatility, I was kind of thinking back, and kudos to Sayer for dropping this into our Predominantly Orange chat. But they took Marshawn Lattimore the year that they were supposed to take Patrick Mahomes. They took Marshawn Lattimore, and actually that entire draft where they didn't take a quarterback was Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, Marcus Williams, Alvin Kamara, Alex Anzalone, Trey Hendrickson, and Al-Quadin Muhammad from Miami. Like,
damn, what a draft class
for not taking a quarterback. Like that is, and so I think the thing that makes me even more confident in the idea of even drafting DeJean is the versatility. And I think that there's a player, not Marshawn Lattimore per se as a comparison for DeJean, but there's a player that Sean Payton had who is a very, very versatile player on his secondary that he had either, or that he had on his defense that went on to play with either the Philadelphia Eagles or came back to go play with Sean. His name was Malcolm Jenkins. A safety corner. And Cooper DeJean is of that athletic profile where there's at least a part of you where even if they take DeJean, maybe you are feeling maybe that they still want to develop a guy like Riley Moss, right? Because of that versatility. So he also adds special teams value. Like, right, he adds special teams value, which is maybe the one aspect of this, that is maybe guys like a Quinyon Mitchell, a Terrion Arnold, a Kool-Aid McKinstry, that DeJean actually offers you is this, and especially given the new kickoff rules, I think, and of course, Mike Westhoff, I've got to at least think that DeJean is rather high on their board as a possible player for them, either at 12. Don't think it would be 12, but just a little bit later on, maybe in a trade back scenario for them to possibly even take.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're just trying to stick to the corner position right now because this guy's going to be a bit later. But one of the what are some other commonalities between the corners and players and defensive backs in general that you've mentioned? They've all been at least 6 foot. Some of them are like right on that 6 foot, but Sean Payton seems to kind of value the longer corners at least a little bit. We've seen that, and again, I don't know which Payton is calling the shots more here, but we've also seen that George Payton seems to kind of lean that direction as well a little bit. Obviously, Pat Surtain, 6'2", like super, super long guy. Riley Moss was like, I think 6'1" or 6 foot. So definitely a little bit of a commonality there. And one of the guys that I'm going to be talking about as well has that same just insane length. I mean, this guy is just ridiculous, but Kyrie Jackson from Oregon, who I think we tried to take on day 2.
You just didn't want me to steal it this time.
Hey, I called it at the end of last episode. I called it. He's even longer. Like he's like almost 6'4". But there seems to be some kind of commonality with like both Paytons sort of liking the longer corners. Kyrie Jackson actually transferred from Alabama. He's not like super, super athletic, but if you're looking for a guy that can kind of take over the cornerback 2 or compete for that cornerback 2 position, like I don't know if I trust him as like going against your like the elite wide receivers, ironically, and I don't know if I don't think Boggins is in the chat right now, but when they played against Washington, like pretty much every time they play against Washington, Kyrie Jackson just kind of gets like burned by all of the talent and athleticism on the wide receivers of Washington. So I don't know if I would trust him necessarily to be like your number 1 guy ever. But if you're looking for like that other boundary corner that can play alongside Surtain in that backfield and compare that secondary and compare against or compete against some of the other cornerbacks in that room, again, you're probably going to take him in day 2, like round 2 or 3. But he could be a dude that they look at. So that's the guy who's like, if we're going to trade down and I'm going to get a 2nd round pick out of it,
Quality capital.
I'm okay with it because like I want to have a shot at maybe going after Kyrie Jackson to compete against Riley Moss, because Riley Moss still hasn't done much, unfortunately.
But it's telling. It is telling if they don't address the room. It goes to show you how confident they are in a guy like.
Oh yeah, clearly. But I would be much more okay trading down, getting a 2nd round pick, and getting someone like Jackson. And there's other corners, like he's just a guy like him.
Real quick,
and taking a corner at 12.
Real quick, obviously, I know Matty wants to talk about some more.
Yeah, go for it.
I should say, future SEC opponent with Oklahoma and Texas going at the. But T'Vondre Sweat, it's at least noting to talk about him. Because this is a guy that got in, he had a DWI. I mean, we're talking, if we're going to, and we're kind of entering the territory of day 2 selections right now for positions. Sweat is a guy that, frankly, he was a favorite of mine. Like, he was such a unique one, for the Broncos, because he was a pure run stuffer. Like he was the guy that you could just plug in, don't have to worry about. He's going to take care of what he needs to take care of. And, and the rest will take care of itself. But the DWI really, really ruined his stock from my vantage point. And maybe if you're able to kind of luck out and maybe get him as a UDFA, but like he really kind of went off my board entirely with that DWI.
He was a pretty much guaranteed lock to be a 2nd round pick. Everything I'd seen had him in that range. I don't know. Who is that guy?
Whoever he is, he's devilishly handsome.
Dude, I don't know where he's a late day. He's like a day 3 guy
now,
right?
Or it feels that way.
Like
I don't a fumble in the bag, man.
Like maybe he goes in round 4. Like somebody will take him.
Oh, dude, the Chiefs. He has Chiefs written all over him.
Yeah.
Or Cowboys or Raiders or whatever. Like it's one of those things that some team we're going to be looking at this maybe 2-3 years from now and be like, man, they got a steal with him. But like, I don't know how you would justify using even an early day 2 or maybe a day 2 pick
It's,
on ball with this
dude,
situation. Especially considering like all the Rashee Rice situation right now and like all of that. Like
Chiefs don't care though. That's the
Henry
thing.
Ruggs situation. Like there's just teams are just going to be completely out on that regardless of who he is as a football player.
Well, and I was just gonna say this is the later version or later rounds version of like a Jalen Carter, right? Because like Jalen Carter is a very different, like physical prospect than Sweat by any stretch, but still, if he didn't have the speeding ticket, and then of course the other stuff that was on top of that, then you're talking him being truly a top 5 inside, maybe even top 3 lock as a draft pick, and instead he fell again as a Georgia Bulldog to the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's kind of all worked out, but there's a reason why he fell. Like there's a reason why he fell, and T'Vondre Sweat is looking at it more in the sense of like, oh, we're talking maybe he was a second round pick, like maybe an early second round pick to, he actually might not even be drafted at this point because of what he did.
Dude, it's his fault, but he, again, talk about fumbling the bag, because he coming out of like his stock was skyrocketing. I remember seeing clips of him at the Senior Bowl. Dude was like straight up winning double teams. He was just murdering people on their line drills. Like he's just an absolute physical specimen of a player. Someone's probably going to take him day 3. Again, he just screams Chiefs to me. Like they don't care. Even if the Rashee Rice stuff recently, which like you didn't see that, like there's a warrant out for him now.
Yeah.
It just like, they just don't seem to care. And that just makes me hate the Chiefs even more, because they're just like, well, I don't care about your actual, like who you are as a person.
8 felony counts. He's up for.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to, if there's anybody that would scream being a Kansas City Chief, it would be Kyrie Jackson. So that would, I had to throw that in the ether just to make Brandon mad, because it seems like, well, for one, the Chiefs they need cornerback help, and it seems like Spagnuolo has always prioritized or loved those physical quarters, right? So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if the Chiefs broke Brandon's heart.
You're telling me the Chiefs are going to take Kyrie Jackson? Get out.
All right. As far as some other players that are going to be teetering on the first round, it's at least now fitting we talk about the linebackers. And there's probably this is a case where you could pick your flavor. Pick your flavor of linebacker as far as who may go first round at the bottom half of the first round, maybe even who is the first linebacker taken in the second round. But it's between Peyton Wilson and Edgerrin Cooper. Those are the 2 linebackers. Peyton Wilson, if you're talking about like, one of the just freaky linebackers in this class, athletes, like off-ball linebackers, Wilson, if the Broncos are content on the idea of putting Drew Sanders, at edge rusher and not making him to be that off-ball linebacker, and they just wanted to actually address the off-ball linebacker situation in this draft class and have it be draft capital, Peyton Wilson would be very, very high on the Broncos draft board. My guess is Edgerrin Cooper would be as well, but Wilson is a very athletic mover at linebacker.
Who is that? Was he the one that we met with? Didn't we meet with like one of those super freaky linebackers somewhat recently?
I don't know if it was recent. I know they met with the Notre Dame linebacker.
Maybe that's who it was.
No.
You think Peyton would go in the first round?
Those athletic traits, team can fall in love with them. Yeah, Matty?
Yeah.
25 to 35 range probably for him.
Yeah.
I'll take
Dude had
one
a
team to one
ridiculous year last year.
Yeah. He's got some,
like-
I think he's got some medicals. Like, you think he's got some medicals that's kind of gone up with him. But, Cooper, I think that would be the thing if you want to take him maybe a little bit above a guy like Peyton is he doesn't have the medicals, right? He doesn't have the medicals. And so
Cooper is that like built in a lab guy that can give you, dude had 8 sacks last year as an inside linebacker.
I don't know. Wilson's not far behind though, as far as a guy that's built in the lab.
Yeah. Wilson at 6. Kind of insane to see these inside guys racking up the
what about
the pressures.
What about some other maybe edge rushers? We're kind of creeping more and more now into the second and third rounds. Maybe even some corners. Actually, we should probably get into safety. Safety is probably another position maybe to discuss a little bit.
I already told you my defensive back that I'm in love with. I'll let someone else go.
Well, I was going to stick at corner, go TJ Tampa. Like, he's another big 6'2", 200, willing to be physical in the running game. He had like 3 tackles for loss this year, 5 tackles for loss. Last year, a couple of interceptions, like 5 pass breakups. Like, he's a really solid player on the back end. He's not somebody you're really going to be. He's not a cornerback 1 type of guy, but he wouldn't have to be for us unless we decide to get freaky and trade Patrick Surtain. Then things look a little different. But you're going to see some analysis I've heard about, and this could just be a knee-jerk thing, but with the new tackling rules, there's going to be a premium on bigger defensive backs and their ability to be physical and tackle straight up. And he fits that bill. So you can look at that guy and say, one of your prerequisites as a defensive back is you got to be willing to get physical. You got to almost be a 0.5 type of guy in the box, so to speak, especially if they kick you inside. So he could potentially do that. Now, I wouldn't want him out in space a ton, especially against some of the shiftier receivers. So the nickel may be a little tough for him, but he's got a lot physically that you would like for what he brings. He played 12 games last year, 12 games this year, so he's available too. At some point, you have to start taking durability into account. And one of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot, I'm a guy that bets on upside as much as the next guy, but availability is your best ability. And there's a lot that goes into conditioning your body to be able to sustain for 12 games last year and 12 games this year on a defense that had some ups and downs for sure. But I think he's somebody to consider. We don't really have a second round pick, but maybe he could slide into the third round. I've seen his range as anywhere from around pick 35 for some people on their boards all the way to pick 78. So it's a very wide range for him. I think the corner position, especially this year, it's the eye of the beholder and just like the way that you interpret somebody's game and how that'll translate. There are like 3 guys in the first round that are all pretty closely graded that you could see, go in that 9 to 21, 22 range. And there are a lot of corners that you could like in the second round too. You guys mentioned one of them out of Oregon. So there's some guy out of Georgia. There's Kool-Aid we haven't really talked about yet. Like there's a lot of defensive backs in that second round that are going to get moved.
As we're kind of
Georgia, you're talking about Kamari Lester.
Yes, sir.
Is my other one.
Yeah. I think as you go more into like, the day 2s and, if it gets to that point, very, very early day 3. And I don't think it will. And I mentioned his name, maybe an episode ago, but Mike Sarenstill, the cornerback from Michigan. I mean, just savvy corner. And again, I'm biased to the Big Ten in their corners. But I mean, Sarin still is a guy that is he's the Greg Newsome man, like like a Greg Newsome type corner, where he's savvy, he's technically sound. You know, he's one that's like he's such a coachable corner. And granted, the size is not like those 6'1s or those 6'2 frames, you know, but like he's got that dog in him. Like just, you know, a guy that is, you know, you put him on a corner and he's going to make, you know, he's going to be sticking to you like glue. And I think that Sarin still is like one of those corners that he's one of my favorite corners in this class. And if the Broncos are at least able, you know, to get a day 2, you know, selection, if they will, or I should say a round 2 selection, you know, then he would be one of those guys that would be, you know, rather high up on my board. Another one of those corners for me. And I think because of his athletic traits and everything, he could slide into day 3. Sorry, not day 3, round 3. But that would be Elijah Jones from Boston College. And so if you want to talk about, you know, a very lanky frame, 6'1", 185, 31 inch hands, or sorry, 31 inch arms. I mean, 9 inch hands. I mean, like he's got incredible ball skills. He's got the instincts. I think he ran like a 4.4 at the combine. So there's at least some decent enough speed that you can have there. And we all know that the last, at least one of the latter, you know, people they took from Boston College was pretty good too. So I think that, you know, he's one of those other guys too that I've kind of recently have fallen in love with, as a guy like an Elijah Jones.
Yeah, switching over to safeties too here for a second. There's some guys there that you can probably get kind of on that day 2 level that
maybe slide into day 1.
What's that?
I was going to say maybe even slide into day 1 if you're going to go to some of the players that I think you're going to go to.
I don't know if this guy would slide into day 1, mostly because of his athletic testing that has been kind of not fantastic. But someone like Cameron Kinchens from Miami, at that kind of defensive back / safety, dude is so the reason I said his athletics have been like kind of not great. He ran a 4.65, like he did not run well in the combine, and it kind of looks like he's not super fast. But if you're looking for that, I mean, obviously Justin Simmons, you never know what could happen there. But like if you're looking for someone to maybe like I hate to say replace Justin Simmons, but if you're looking for that ball hawk, that guy that has the instincts to just come down with interceptions, Cameron Kinchens kind of has that ability. Dude had 11 interceptions the past 2 seasons. Like he just is very instinctive. Like he can kind of follow. He's good at reading the quarterback's eyes and following the ball and like knowing where they're going with the ball and being able to come down with it. And you can't overvalue the benefits of having a guy with the skills like that in your secondary. And that's kind of been Justin Simmons' thing for the past. I think he still has the most interceptions by a safety since he came into the league. So it's kind of been his thing. And if you're looking to replace that production at least a little bit, this guy gives you an ability to kind of do that. Kinchens is also really good in like, he wants to hit you. He wants to send a message. Like you can put him in the box. He's good against the run. He's a very physical player, and he kind of reminds me of JL Skinner a little bit in that sense that like he kind of wants to just like lay you out and hurt you a little bit. So he's a guy that I think you can kind of look at in day 2 that can give you some really good productivity at a position that unfortunately we sort of need some more people in that room, just with the question marks and injury history of some guys in the safety.
Well, the good news is,
position.
Jordan, if you're listening to the show, Brandon has now officially gotten on your good graces by mentioning. I
picked your Miami guy. I went through 2 different Florida State guys, and here's your Miami guy.
What about you, Matty? Who would be a safety for you?
Well, Tyler Nubin conversation about him because his range is, pretty wild. I've seen
He's rangy.
Well, but I mean his draft range, like the window that he'll go, 28 to 58, and on a lot of boards. Like, where do you take him? Granted, safety is the running back of defense, right? Like, people just don't value it as much. If you got a really elite one, then maybe you give the bag to that guy and you can make it work, like a Christian McCaffrey on the offensive side, right? I'm sure anybody, like, if you knew Ed Reed was coming out in this draft, like, he would obviously be a top 10 pick, right? But I'm not saying Tyler Nubin's that. But that's why you're seeing such a range on some of these safeties and some of these defensive backs, because you just, like, you don't know in the value there. So Minnesota, pretty good defense. Stick in the Big Ten here. Guy plays physical against the run. Obviously, don't look at his RAS score. A lot of inconclusive results there for him, but has been able to play on the back end, can play on the 1 high or the 2 high, and cover a lot of ground on the back end. And they can also bring him up in the box. So a pretty versatile guy. It just kind of depends on what you want. 6'2", 200 pounds. People say that he's got a frame. He could put on an additional 15 pounds and still maintain. And he probably will need to do that at the NFL level. But man, he's a guy that,
Here's a guy.
Now here's a guy. You could do a lot worse than him in the second round if you got a mid-second rounder and you're trying to come up with an impact player on the back end of your defense. He fits the bill.
God, I wish we had a second round pick so bad, man.
Yeah,
dude, it sucks so bad. I wish we had.
There's so many good people in second round.
I wish we could trade back from 12 and have 6 day 2 picks, because that second round and that third round are just so juicy.
Which, by the way, for full disclosure, whenever you see myself or Matty or Brandon put out a mock draft or something, and we're acquiring 4 or 5, first round or picks,
A2 picks.
I'm just saying, because on Pro Football Focus, when they do these simulators and you do some trade backs, you could actually acquire 4 or 5, picks. Look, it's not hold on.
I'm about to agree with you.
Okay, it's not logical. But are you telling, if it tells me that it's saying, oh, you know what, we will accept that trade, I'm not turning that down. So, again, is it logical? No, not by any means. For instance, there's an example where if you're trading down with the 49ers in the Pro Football Focus, simulator, and you trade down with the 49ers, you very likely could acquire their pick, their second round pick, their third round pick, or possibly even another pick with the, so I mean, and they will gladly accept that deal. So it's I'm just not turning those kinds of things down, and clearly they don't in their simulators. But again, it's.
All I was going to say is I really want to just do a mock where I get 4 day 2 picks and just see who I can end up with, because that would be so much fun. And I don't care if I have to trade down from 12, even if I don't want to. I kind of want to just do it and just see what that haul looks like, because there's just so many guys that are just so good that you can get on day 2.
You could get a tackle, you can get a quarterback potentially, you can get 2 wide receivers and a tight end. You can remake your whole. You can
even get some if we're going to keep it defensive.
You get a starting safety too.
You can get a starting safety if you wanted to. I'm just more curious about what they do with safety. It's really got nothing to do with Brandon Jones, them adding him in, PJ Locke re-adding him back into the mix. I'm just curious about what that safety room is going to look like, because Stearns is he is coming back from injury. PJ Locke does have some injury concerns, and we know Delaren Turner-Yell, he had the ACL injury, so he's not going to be there, I don't think, for the 2024 season. So. And what will the development be for a guy like PJ Locke? So I think that's why I'm kind of curious about what will the safety room be. Obviously they paid Brandon Jones a good deal, not an elite deal by any means, but a good deal. for him to come in, and he is a versatile player that can go with a guy like a PJ Locke. But it's one of the reasons why I'm actually looking at the safety room. And do I think they actually go safety? I don't think they do. But it's one of the reasons why I'm looking at those players like that, like a Cole Bishop, who we didn't get a chance to mention, but like a Cole Bishop or a Tyler Nubin, as was just mentioned, or maybe if they feel like maybe they want to add some competition for a JL Skinner, put some Tyler Owens in this building. Put some Tyler Owens in that building for the Broncos, and you will have a very, very physical safety unit with just Owens and Skinner. And I'm actually kind of curious to see what they will do with a guy like JL Skinner. I actually think one of the creative ways they could use him is maybe use him as a Jamal Adams type. Like the kind of guy that you almost have like almost as a free edge rusher, but also a linebacker to a degree. We know he's a safety, but his size is so freaky to use in a lot of ways with that safety room. And he's such a different one compared to all those other safeties in the room.
Seeing the graphics about Jamal Adams being a free agent and them calling him a box safety is just so funny.
Yeah.
But I get it. Those guys, it's important to be able to throw offenses off and not necessarily know what your defender's doing. It helps if that person's not a liability on the back end, though. Size, that's a thing that you can maybe like develop over time, is a little bit of size, but if you come with that from the jump, that's going to give you the NFL is evolving to a more physical brand of defense required. We saw offenses get spread out. Now I think that we're going to start seeing some things go the other way, and we're going to get back into a little bit more of a physical brand that you're going to need, and you're going to need bigger players to deal with that.
And speaking of the kind of those bigger players and physical safeties, and for some reason, apparently I'm just in love with Florida right now. And I didn't intentionally mean to do this, but I'm looking at these players and I'm just like, why is everyone in Florida? And Jordan's about to hate me again, but Renardo Green, another guy that's just like super, super physical. He actually went up against Malik Neighbors in their game and just like pretty much locked him down. And it was kind of insane to see. So he's a guy too that you can kind of target in that day 2 range. Like he's not a super ball hawk like Cameron Kinchens is, and I specifically mentioned him just because of the kind of what we were getting from Justin Simmons and the physicality there. But Green too is, even though he does not the ball hawk, he's still that physical guy that can go in and make plays. Like he's not as good in the run support again as I think Cameron Kinchens is, but you could probably get him maybe round 3, and he can come in and give you some nice competition in the safety room and potentially maybe be a guy that you could start and feel okay with probably later in his rookie year if you're needing that depth or JL Skinner's not maybe ready yet, or maybe you're having some more injury concerns with some of the other guys in the room. Like I don't think you're going to start him right away, but he's yet another guy that you can take on day 2 that has the ability to turn into a good player. It's kind of insane how many there are.
So let's get into some of these gems, maybe gems and steals that you can truly get now into day 3. We mentioned a few players, but who are some players possibly within day 3 or could even slide into day 2, I guess you could say, with gems on this defensive line, safety room, cornerback room, even linebacker room that you could possibly get in those later rounds? I will lead it off in the sense of
100% you're about to steal my guy, guaranteed.
Well, I mean, if I do, that is just apropos to the standard over here at the Manly Broncos podcast. But you don't need to look no further than the connections over there with Jamar Cain. And
swear to God, I knew it.
And you got to go with Mekhi Wingo. Or even a Mason Smith, or even a Jordan Jefferson for that matter. Like you got to really look at all 3 of those guys as possible, players to have on that defensive line Mason Smith may be the more athletic and maybe the more higher ceiling of the three.
I don't know, dude. Makai Wingo's quick.
Oh, sorry, that's what I meant. Makai Wingo.
I was like, what? Who are you watching?
Well, they're great players. They are great players. Smith and Wingo. But yeah, I think Wingo he's fun. I heard a comparison the other day saying that he feels almost like a early day 3 version of a Kalijah Cansey. Like if you're able to get that and add him to the room, you're talking about a great developmental player to get, a guy like Kane and have him get his, hands on a guy like that again and have him work with that. I think that is one that is incredibly tempting. And so you really, but he's so freaky athletic.
I know I gave you crap for it, but I mean, he's kind of another one of those fairly obvious guys. Like I wanted to talk about him today anyway, but one of those players is probably going to be a Bronco just with that connection to Kane. But Makai Wingo is, and this is going to kind of be a little bit of a recurring theme for some of these remaining players that I'm going to talk about. He's just like a bit smaller. He was banged up a bit in college as well, but he's just so freaky athletic and fast for being almost 300 pounds. Like you watch him play and you're like, there's absolutely no way this guy's 300 pounds because he looks like he moves like he's 250. It's kind of stupid. It's like unfair. Super, super athletic, but he's a bit small. He's a bit shorter and his arms are a bit shorter, which kind of sucks. But yeah, I'm with you. Go ahead, Matty.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say one of the LSU guys. When you said, oh, there are a couple guys, in the interior defense that I will talk about later, I was like, yeah, you're going LSU.
Yeah.
Mason Smith, I mean, 6'6", 315 with room to grow.
Yeah.
Like that's, I guess I'm getting fixated. I like big guys. I cannot lie. Like I want some size here. Like we've tried some of the undersized speedy guys, and that's not like I don't think that's the move anymore. You got to have some size. You got to have some guys that can eat up players on the offensive line and free up for other guys, right? Like I said, force multipliers. If you've got a guy that cannot be, matched up one-on-one, you've got to double team him. You got to, keep a running back in there too, like maybe in case he pushes the pocket back, gets free, like whatever. You got to be able to have enough guys like that. Like gun to your head, who is our best interior defender in the way of affecting the pass game?
Yeah.
Because you can go DJ Jones to stay affecting the run. But you're not always. I mean, he's had a couple of plays, like Minnesota game, for instance. He had some plays, but like I want some disruptors, man. I want somebody that's going to get up in Patrick Mahomes' grill and make him uncomfortable. I'm tired of seeing number 15 just stand in the pocket and do whatever he wants. Like, no, let's break this mamma jamma down, get him out, and then hit him. Like that's what I want.
It's interesting. You would, if you were to ask me, who that guy is, I actually think he's a free agent still right now. And that would be Mike Purcell. I think if you were to actually ask me who is the better one between he and DJ Jones, I would actually say Purcell was the better one between he and DJ Jones. And not saying that DJ Jones is, again, not capable, because he had a really good 2022, when he was with the Broncos. And then something just went awry. But I will say the fact that he is not recently cut and recently released either tells you that they're waiting on the draft to happen and figure out how things are certainly going to happen, or they're going to have maybe a camp battle, right? Or they're going to maybe have a camp battle. And, because I think that's the other thing we need to bring in here is the draft picks that do happen in this class could very well, make a veteran player expendable. So again, we need to, at least preface that, because like come training camp, you will have some cap casualties around that point in time.
There are 3 positions that I'm fairly damn certain that the Broncos are going to take in this draft. It's quarterback. They're going to get another wide receiver somewhere, and they're going to take an interior defensive lineman.
Or an edge rusher, at least, between one of those.
I'm fairly certain.
I think you could add offensive tackle to that list, and I agree.
Oh, God. See, that's why. Okay, I know this.
I was going to say, bro, you're insane tackle.
I know we're talking defense, but like my dream scenario, I don't hate Bowles, right? I don't hate him, whatever.
You're
but
preaching to the choir if this is what you're going with.
Trade
I think you're
him
about to say my boy.
Trade him for a day 2 pick, like a second rounder,
If you can.
right? Like there are teams
Say
that
it.
want to tackle.
Do it.
You could take any of those tackles at 12. I don't care.
Oh,
Take
I thought you were gonna say my guy, my Bulls replacement.
Fashanu?
Nope.
Jordan Morgan.
Oh, okay. Oh, going a little later.
Take him in a second. Yeah.
Sure, you could. I mean, there's so much offensive tackle talent. How many tackles do you think go in the first round? 7?
There
A
could
lot.
be 10.
Maybe 8?
A lot.
10.
Like,
This is one of the
there's-
craziest tackle classes ever.
And that none of them are a reach. They all deserve to be taken there. Like, that's the thing. This is the time to go to if you're ever gonna reset at left tackle, this is the draft to do that.
Yeah.
Do that, you reset, you take care of that position for the next 12 plus years, you're good. You get that second round pick. Oh, now we can move up and maybe we get a Nix if he's still there. If you want a Penix, I think he's going to be in that range too. Like Rattler's going to be, back into the second round probably type of guy. Like, I think that's the structure. I think that's the move. But
Take this as you will, but of their first round ranks on their big board, PFF has 9 tackles.
Yeah, it's
in the first 32.
And to Michael's point, like you could get a possible top 10 tackle in the second, and that's
why I was thinking you were saying trade Bulls for a second and then take Jordan Morgan.
But it's not just that. You got guys like Blake Fisher.
There's other guys, yeah.
You got like Blake Fisher possibly, in the second round, or maybe early third. I mean, so I think that like
Suamataya from BYU.
Yeah, Dominic Pooney from Kansas.
It's too many. It's ridiculous. It's stupid.
Patrick Paul from Houston. I mean, like, I think the thing here is like, and Matty, we made this argument a few times on the show, but like, the thing is like, it's nothing against Bulls, but the moment you the moment you draft a tackle at 12, and this is assuming they draft a tackle at 12. I love Bulls. He's gotten better every single year. He's definitely proven to at least be one of the better tackles in the league. But you draft a tackle at 12. I love you, Bulls, but I'm actually immediately trading you because there is no inconceivable way that rookie, who certainly maybe to some degree is a developmental tackle on some traits, I'm not sitting you in favor of a guy who, he may be on his last end of his deal, but like, if I have the opportunity to shed money, get younger at the position, and play him right away, I'm leaning towards taking that alternative necessarily versus the other. And I love both.
And you're not even trying to keep elite protection for a franchised quarterback or a rookie. Like, there's no downside to putting a guy in right away, letting him get the playing time, and getting capital for a guy like Bulls while you can.
And it's an elite position. Like, it's a pivotal position to have.
Yeah. Before you go, Matty, because I know you're going to dip here just a little bit. We recently just had our offensive prospects where we talked about sleepers and players. And actually, this is an opportunity, Brandon, like, we can get a chance to talk about some prospects we didn't get a chance to talk about, or maybe, give their flowers to, since Michael's in the chat, give some flowers to. But who are some sleepers or players that maybe that you feel like you want to give some attention to, Matty?
Javon Baker, wide receiver from UCF.
Yeah, welcome to the party.
Like, dude,
we got jackets.
Freaking, he's a second round pick, and that's bro. Him and Leggett. Like, if I could find a way to get both of those guys, like, I know double dipping is a little weird. It didn't work out so well last time. Man, you could do some freaky things with Leggett, Baker, and Mims.
Look,
And I'm not discounting Reynolds, right? And I know everybody loves Tim Patrick. We'll see.
Yeah.
But my gosh, like the talent there, Baker is such an explosive player. Leggett is a natural Sutton replacement. If you're looking to reset there too, like big receiver that goes up and gets it, and it doesn't matter if the defense knows it's going his way, he's still making it happen.
It's funny you say that because one of my guys that I said was in a similar, it reminds me of Cortland Sutton, is Cornelius Johnson from Michigan. You're going to get him later though.
Yeah.
But you missed that one.
but yeah, but I mean, you got Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, possibly. I mean, like there's just see, this is the thing, is like, of all the things, and it's not just the simple fact that we're not looking at actually getting rid of Cortland Sutton and Garrett Bowles, because we do love them. We love what they represent for this team. But if you look strictly at the two best positions and deepest positions in this class, maybe aside from quarterback, offensive tackle and wide receiver. So if you are truly looking at maybe offloading a contract like Cortland Sutton, offloading a contract like Garrett Bowles, and get younger at the position, I've said it numerous times, even on social media times, but it's like, this is a class to do that. This is a class to possibly do that. I got to give a shout out to Big Mike. He's not in the chat, but I did get a chance to watch Ryan Flournoy. And I'm definitely intrigued. And when we talk about a player that is definitely 6'1" and about 200 pounds from, I want to say, what is it, Southern, right? Is that what he said? Or like Southern University or something like that. But he's after the catch freak. Like, he's an after the catch freak. So as much as we talk about, if you want to maybe talk about a Javon Baker light in this class, Flournoy feels like he truly is that guy. So whenever Big Mike was giving him praise, in this chat earlier, like, Flournoy feels like a guy that could be a steal or rise up draft boards and, be a guy. So Flournoy, getting the chance to kind of watch a little bit more of him, is definitely a player that, so I would not be surprised if they even took a chance on him, right? Because, I mean, like a Marcus Colston, right? They took in the 6th round. Talking about Sean Payton, they took a Marcus Colston in the 6th round, and he ended up being maybe one of Sean Payton's and Drew Brees' favorite, weapons.
See y'all later. I'm gonna go rest my eyes.
Yep. Peace out, Matty. Yeah, there's too many. Anyway, I do have a couple of other defensive guys that I wanted to mention. And I might steal one of yours, but I'm going to try not to. I'm going to go in a different direction. But if we're going back to the edge room for a moment here, because even though it's like very top heavy, there's still some guys later down the line that you can get that are going to make an impact. And I'm going to stick with the slightly undersized, but also undervalued players, Ben. And I'm going to go with Javon Solomon from Troy.
He's fun, man.
You know who else played at Troy? DeMarcus Ware. Anyway, who else played at Troy and passed and hit quarterbacks for the Broncos?
He is so fun.
He led the whole FBS in sacks with 16, and he's like barely 6 foot. That's his biggest thing, is he's just small. Other than that, and like he's not like super athletic in like his testing, but other than that, he just, like, when you watch him play, he gets it done. He finds ways to get it done. He also had like 50 tackles for a loss in his career. Like, you can steal him on day 3. You can steal him on day 3. Boggins, you missed it. I was talking up Washington wide receivers when I was talking about my guy Kyrie Jackson, who just seems to, that's his kryptonite, is anytime he plays against Washington wide receivers, they just burn the hell out of him. Anyway, Javon Solomon from Troy is unfortunately undersized, but just such a good pass rusher and has like the production that you want to get from your edge room, that you can take him and he's going to outperform where you're taking him, because you're going to get him probably on day 3, and he's a fun player.
It's going to be a blast for the past for Broncos fans, but you know who he compares favorably to?
Yeah, the other guy from You know what? I'm not going to say it because I'm going to steal one of your players.
No, I was going to say Elvis Dumerville.
Okay. I thought you were going to say someone else. Never mind.
But I mean, I love Solomon. I mean, the size necessarily isn't, like you said, that great. But I think that, he's so fun. And some of those other players, we would be remiss if we didn't bring the local ties within this. Muhammad Kamara.
That was my other. I almost said him, but I went with Solomon.
Well, I love both of those guys, Kamara and Solomon. Kamara, I actually think
we met with him twice, I think.
Yeah, I actually think he's a better. I don't know if he will be a better pro than Shaq Barrett if you're going to go off of school. Mm-hmm. But I do think that he's a better prospect coming out than Shaq Barrett. But to be fair, Shaquille Barrett should have been drafted the year that he did come out, and he ended up being an undrafted free agent and signed with the Broncos. But relentless, just a relentless pass rusher. I mean, a guy that, when you are relentless, you do have a array of pass rush moves to get to the quarterback, and Kamara has that. And even maybe if it was CSU, I think had he played for a much larger Power 5 school to a degree, he would be talked about, in this upper class, if you will, of, players and, not necessarily into the Darius Robinson conversation or even the, I should say Chop Robinson conversation. But like he would be talked about, as maybe a tick below. Even I would actually put him into the Brylan Trice conversation as far as a guy that is like that, as far as the guy that's maybe, right within the Darius Robinson and the, the Chop Robinsons, if you will. So Trice is, we didn't get a chance to talk about him, but he's a really, really solid edge rusher. I know we're not pandering to Boggins necessarily, but Trice is another fun edge rusher that if you hadn't had a chance to see him, he is super, super fun.
Yeah, Kamara, just hop back to him real quick. I was going to bring him up as well. He kind of has some like Von Miller-esque qualities, and we talked about Von Miller earlier in the sense of just like his ability to get low and bend under the tackles when he like on his snaps is just kind of insane. He's just like super, super athletic. I think he was like, I don't know exactly where he was super high in pass rush win rate in like all of FBS. And I think they used him inside a little bit too. Like he wasn't exclusively rushing from the edge. Muhammad Kamara, I'd be surprised if he's not a Bronco, to be honest. I mean, someone else might scoop him up and get him higher, but he just screams local guy that makes his way onto the team.
But here's the thing.
This year?
Like, I know people have been, mentioning, well, Sean Payton loves, going out and getting LSU. Well, we have to remember that's actually because of like the area. It's like high school recruiting. Like it's the area of where he was coaching. Like, you're going to fall in love with those guys. So it's just like, I think that the fact that Muhammad Kamara went to Colorado State actually could be a bit favorable to him being a Bronco, because Sean Payton has favored the in-house talent. And I think that, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. Frankly, I know this isn't, we didn't talk about him and as much in the last episode, but I wouldn't even be the least bit surprised if Dalen Holker and Kamara are players that are, at least be of interest for the Broncos, just because of their dip into those, in-house ties and everything. I would be remiss talking about some of these other players too, if we didn't get a chance to also dip a little bit more into the local ties with safety and talk about Trey Taylor.
You're a Trey Taylor guy.
I am surprised that some almost all the mock draft boards, prospect boards, just do not like him for some reason. So, I mean, like, I'm just so surprised that, he won the Jim Thorpe Award, right, for best defensive back. I mean, but yet here we, I mean, again, I know that award doesn't necessarily mean, that, he's automatically, going to end up being a day 2 selection or whatever. But I mean, Trey Taylor, like I was pretty surprised to see how low they are on him. And maybe it's just because it's a lot to factor there, with him. But I mean, maybe some of that is because he's coming from the military. They don't know what the future necessarily could hold for him. Like, if he doesn't get drafted, does he enlist into the military? Does he enlist into the Air Force? But I would have to at least envision, maybe the Broncos, right? Because that's another one. Like that's another one that I could see, the Broncos maybe looking at. And if they do go a safety route, that would be one, call it a feel good pick, if you will, even if it's safety, but it would make a lot of sense. But I would be remiss if I did not talk about one of my guys, and it's actually two of my guys, and two of the guys that they Broncos have met with. And Boggins, look away. But it would be Quentin Newsome and Omar Brown, and I think Omar Brown are both from the University of Nebraska. Newsome is a very savvy, tackle-oriented corner. He's not uber athletic. If you actually want to go look at an uber athletic corner, go look at the other corner that was opposite of him at the University of Nebraska named Tommy Hill. That's a name I would be filing away if you are a looking at some draft prospects for next year. Former wide receiver turned corner, very athletic profile, ball hawk, etc. But he's savvy. I mean, I personally don't think he gets drafted because I think he sustained an injury, didn't get an invite to the combine. I don't know if Omar Brown even gets drafted, but you're talking about versatile player, cornerback, safety, that type of, body type or that type of, profile. But I think what really helps guys out like a Quentin Newsome or even an Omar Brown is they played in a 3-3-5 defense. And if there's one of the things I actually love about a 3-3-5 defense is that it gives more credence to the athleticism in a scheme. Like you actually trust who they are as athletes necessarily versus maybe some of like the 3-4 or 4-3 or some of those standard defenses. And I think that, with Tony White, you had a lot of, room to grow with some of those athletes, guys like Omar Brown and Newsome, where you got a chance to see a lot more development for them. You got a chance to see far more development with them, as they was going older and, and they were older prospects. They were seasoned vets, but I mean, for Brown, I do really like him as a prospect and the versatility that he can add.
Yeah. I do have one other guy that I was going to talk about that I kind of teased a little bit earlier with when Matty was talking more about like getting some more interior pressure. And that's Dwayne Carter from Duke.
Yeah.
He's probably going to go later. He's not good against the run is the biggest issue with him. But as an interior pass rusher, he can get it done. He's probably going to be more of a rotational piece. But he's also like his reviews off the field as just a person are also glowing. He's the first 3-time team captain in Duke's program history ever. And he's just has the skill set and the moves to affect the quarterback from the interior and actually generate pressure. The biggest problem is, again, he misses a lot of tackles and he doesn't hold his gaps well. So he's definitely like a pass rush situation only kind of guy, which just pushes him down boards probably a lot. But I think you can get good production if you're looking for someone from the interior that can give you more in the pass rush. Dwayne Carter is a guy who can definitely do that, and you can probably get him for pretty cheap.
Yeah. One of the other players that I think would be worth actually mentioning within the safety class, and if we're talking about physical wide receivers or even players that if they want to certainly add to the room, and not trying to pander to toboggans here, but Dominique Hampton. I think the thing that makes it so fascinating with Washington is so much praise went to the offense for Washington that I think at times people forgot a lot about some of these defensive prospects or the defensive in general for Washington. Like that, like
Washington's whole roster is stacked, man.
Like it is a very, very impressive roster. And what DeBoer, built there at Washington was something really impressive. And so if you are, an Alabama fan and you're looking forward to maybe seeing what he could do with Alabama and continuing that, I would be super excited if you would, if you were looking at something like that. But physical safety, like, you want to
talk about, I talked about the ball hawking replacement for Justin Simmons earlier. If you want to look for that Kareem Jackson level guy that's just going to lay you out
at 6'2",
Dominic Hampton
at 6'2", like, yeah, I mean, so yeah, I mean, if you're going to be talking about players, maybe to add competition for guys like a J.L. Skinner, we mentioned, Tyler
Cameron
Owens.
Jenkins. Oh, sorry.
Right.
My boy.
But I was going to say, we mentioned Tyler Owens, we mentioned Cameron Kitchens, but I mean, Hampton is in that conversation as well.
Yeah.
Any other players, maybe we didn't get a chance to touch on, maybe within that interior, or maybe another edge rusher. Maybe actually, I was surprised. Of all the players, we didn't get a chance to talk about as far as a player that either could be a boundary first rounder or even or even mid to early day 2 would be Braden Fisk.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about him so bad, but I feel like we had kind of already covered him a little bit. And also, I don't know if I call him a sleeper, but
no, I know. But if anything, he's more of like a. If you sleep on him, he'll be in the first round. That's the kind of conversation, if anything. Like, but does he not scream Detroit Lions player?
Oh, he's 100% a Lion. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's one of those other guys that just, God, I wish we had a second round pick so bad. Like he could definitely slip into the back end of the first, but if we had a pick in the top 10 of the second round, there's so many guys I could go after there, and Braden Fisk would be one of them. He's just so good. Dude also he blew it up at the Senior Bowl. Wasn't he, I know like he wasn't ranked the best player. Wasn't he like, he won some award at the Senior Bowl. I don't remember exactly what it was, but Braden Fisk is
he also
freaky.
He also had the fastest time at the combine.
He ran a 4.7 at almost 300 pounds.
Actually 4.78, but it's still I mean
it's still 4.7.
Yeah. Other, players of note from that interior, we didn't get a chance to mention them, but Brandon Dorless from Oregon. Also, Rook Arorho from Clemson. We didn't get a chance to mention him either. Chris Jenkins from Michigan. Michael Hall from Ohio State. Logan Lee. Tyler Davis. Some of those other names. Leonard Taylor from the University of Miami be another one. And if you actually want to go with maybe one of those players, I know we subtly mentioned Jordan Jefferson within the name of LSU, but not necessarily a player like a Devondre Sweat based on size. But if you want to maybe go with maybe a nose tackle or just a D tackle, if you will, McKinley Jackson is another, McKinley Jackson, Christian Boyd. Those are names, certainly that I would file away if the Broncos want to go maybe more beefy on that defensive line if they didn't want to go with a Devondre Sweat. I think what makes at least the defensive line fascinating for me, Brandon, for the Broncos side of things is like there's a variety of ways that they could go with this, even with the addition of Malcolm Roach to this mix, because it's like, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons why the Sweat thing was so fun, because you could just put him there, don't even have to worry about him, and he could just do what he needs to do, and then you can worry about Zach Allen and Rhodes,
The nice thing about Malcolm Roach, and I feel like a lot of people kind of bashed that signing because it was so unsexy, to be honest, which is just stupid. Dude's so good against the run. That's like his thing. He's a run defender first and foremost. I think he was like graded as the best run defender. Again, take PFF grades for what you will, but I think he was their top run defender of the entire season last year.
Guess what? Guess who was the most graded run defender before he signed with the Denver Broncos, and he's not cut yet. DJ Jones.
Oh, okay.
When he signed with the Denver Broncos and he came from San Francisco, he was graded as the elite run stuffer coming from the 49ers. So maybe Peyton and maybe Jamar Cain, maybe they see something with him, and maybe they all, and just unfortunate, but maybe there were some unfortunate things that happened with Marcus Dixon where he could not get them to where they needed to be.
Another one of those day two. I don't think this guy's a fringe day one guy, but just one of those like hot, like top of round two edge players that we also didn't really talk about is like Marshawn Nealand from Western Michigan.
Yeah,
not again a guy's like just like not a athletic freak, but just like the effort that he puts in every single snap to get after the quarterback is special. He's good against the run and chasing down the ball carrier. Just a solid all around player. He definitely he also kind of screams maybe Lions to me, just like one of those hard nosed players, maybe like Baltimore. Kind of looks like a team also that might go after him, but he's another one of those like day two edge rushers that there's a reason that they're on day two and not day one compared to like some of the guys we talked about, but I don't see him mentioned much, and he's someone you could take in round two and have as a solid player.
What, and if we're going to dip a little bit more into the linebackers, Jordan McGee, Trevin Wallace, Cedric Gray. We also, I believe, met with Easton Gibbs from the University of Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I don't know where Gibbs is going to go, but if there's one thing we know is that Wyoming has turned down some pretty decent linebackers in the NFL. And Marist Lufau is the one I believe the Broncos met with from Notre Dame. Yeah, but Cedric Gray and Jordan McGee is the one Wallace we didn't get a chance to mention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dude, Wyoming has like is kind of like low key a linebacker pipeline. There was that guy from, oh my God, what's his name? Like he was like 2 drafts ago.
You're not talking Logan Wilson, are you?
Yeah, Logan Wilson. Maybe it was more than 2 drafts ago. Maybe it was 3 years ago. I don't know. It was a while ago. But Logan Wilson, I think there was another one too. Like the linebackers coming out of Wyoming recently have been pretty solid.
Well, and if I remember right, the Cincinnati Bengals in that draft class drafted all 3 linebackers I wanted.
They did. Didn't they also take my other linebacker that I wanted? He was 2020. Davis Gaither was one of them. No, there was another one.
Yeah,
I'll have to look it up. But yeah, they got all of them.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting NFL draft, and what better person, Brandon, to have a sit-down conversation with a week before the NFL draft. So if you've been listening and you guys have made it through this entire stream, you're in luck, because what better person, Brandon, to talk about the NFL draft, get maybe some buzz about where the Denver Broncos are trending a week before the NFL draft than none other than Super Broncos reporter Mike Kliss. Mike Kliss will join us on the Manely Broncos podcast next week on April 17th. Make sure you stay tuned for that. It will be a much shorter episode. And if you guys have any questions for Mike, we will be sure to fire them off to Mike and maybe see if he can answer them as much as he can. Again, thank you guys so much for hopping in. We are getting ever so closer to the NFL draft. And also, as far as a note in terms of what we do typically the night before the draft, we only do one, but we do a first round mock of picks 1 to 32. So make sure you stay tuned for that the day before the draft. Again, thank you guys so much. This was actually a very fun and detailed-oriented show, maybe a little bit more than the last one. I love talking about those offensive prospects. Again, so thank you guys so much, and stay tuned until the next one when we have Mike Kliss joining the Manely Broncos podcast.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is